Good evening, everybody. Hope you can hear me and that our audio is working. Okay, let me just move things around a bit here so I can see the live chat. Oh, I see. Right, I think we're sorted out. Yeah, good evening. Great to see you all. Hope you're all well. All sorts of things going on in the world, as always. And here in York, England, we press on with our early 19th century European long case clock repair project, which is it's getting there. It's we're kind of getting round the corner into the final straight. So that's good fun. It'd be nice to see it up and running within the next couple of weeks. So if you were here last week, you will know that we have started to tackle this problem. This is, let's zoom in a little bit so you can see. There we go. This is the hour wheel bridge. So what the hour wheel bridge, it normally comprises of one component. Hi, Neil, Derek, Franklin, and Ian. Yeah, we're a double booked tonight a bit with the AHS. They hold their lectures on a Thursday evening. They're not every week, so apologies to the AHS. But anyway, there you go. You can catch up with them or catch up with us through recordings. So hopefully nobody will miss out. Horology everywhere you look. How great is that? So our hour wheel pipe, all it does is support the hour wheel. So this is the hour wheel here. And as the name suggests, this carries the hour hand. Get a pointy stick. So the hour hand fits on this shoulder that's turned on the casting here. And in this case, it's kind of a little bit unusual because there's no screw or taper pin through or anything to hold the hour hand on. It just pushes onto a taper. So we've got that to deal with. We don't actually have any hands for this clock, but anyway. So this fits on there and it rotates clockwise, obviously, as we're looking from the front of the clock once every 12 hours. Now, the clock had a bit of an accident before it came to us. The whole thing must have got on the floor, and this is quite a heavy component, and it snapped off this pipe here. Now, the reason it snapped off the pipe, well, apart from the fact it obviously went on the floor or something, is that this component's actually quite thin here. It's made from a casting, so it's turned down. And the maker, when they were turning this pipe, it's not parallel, by the way. It's slightly tapered. It's a bit smaller radius at this end than it is at this end, as many things are in horology, tapered like a brooch taper, cutting brooch taper. So the maker has cut into the corner, which is good practice. It makes it look really smart. You don't sort of have a fillet in the corner because you don't want the inside of the hour wheel pipe there to bind on the corner. So you actually want it cut away. So they've done a good job, but it's left this quite weak. You know, it's been fine for 150 years and it's snapped off. So we're going to repair it by soft soldering. And we're going to use soft solder because I don't want to heat the whole thing up so hot like you would with hard soldering or silver soldering. Soft soldering is perfectly fine, but there isn't enough material to join the two things together. So we're going to reinforce the two components with a piece of brass that I found last week, and we started filing it to get the whole thing to fit together. So I've been thinking in the week, kind of on and off, more off than on, of course, about getting this thing straight. So if we look at our piece of material that we filed to a taper, so it's a reasonable fit there, we can push this on, which is also a reasonable fit, tap those two things together. But the problem then is, how do we get this square with this? In fact, I'm not actually particularly interested about this being square with this. What I'm interested in is this being square with the front of the movement, and more importantly, again, square with the dial. So when the hour hand rotates, it tracks parallel to the dial. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll pre-assemble it, which is, I think, what I'm going to do. I've kind of changed my mind on this several times. So I think it's just time to get on with it and see what happens. I'm going to pre-assemble it quite tight. And then I'm going to put the dial on, put the hand on. Now, wait a minute, you're saying, Matthew, you said the clock doesn't have any hands. It doesn't have any hands, so we'll have to knock an hour hand up from a bit of wire or whatever, and check that it's actually tracking flat. Then hopefully we can carefully disassemble it and solder it, and everybody's happy. So that's the plan, if it is in fact a plan. Now, when I filed this last week to a taper, what I can't remember whether I did this online or not, what I started doing, really importantly, I don't know if you can see there, hold it still for a second, is I filed some grooves along with a 3-square file. Now that's really important because we want the solder to run inside. If we just have components kind of fixed tightly together, then the solder's not going to go inside and the joint isn't going to be strong. Oh, so I've got a tangent. Today, I've been mainly this morning anyway, making photographic scales. We used them when we started this project. You might remember, did some nice photography. Anyway, we did those scales so practitioners, conservators, anybody can get hold of them for free. I realized that I'd sort of lost the original file. Anyway, they're on my website if you want to download some of those, just kind of random thoughts. So, right, concentrate, Reed. Going to prepare everything for soldering. Then I'm going to put the dial on, make a hand, check it tracks parallel, then carefully take it apart, hopefully heat it up, hopefully it won't all fall apart. And but even if it does fall apart or it does move when we solder it, the beauty of soft solder, of course, is we've got a bit of a chance to go back and rearrange things a little bit by heating it again. Okay, so just going to finish the job of filing these grooves along. I've done some, but they need to be a bit deeper, I think. So not going to see this when it's assembled, but you will see it if the in the middle of dinner the hour hand falls off or falls to the bottom of the dial. It'll be a bit embarrassing. Not got the right tool for the job there. We've got a bit of nice 3-square file here that I've taken off one side of teeth, as you can see there, but regrettably it got snapped. So not by me, I hasten to add, but could have easily been by me. I wonder whether it'll go in a pin vise just to kind of hold it so we can use that. Would be useful. Yep, looks like that might work. Don't really like these needle files in pin vices normally because you faff about a lot, wasting time changing them. Actually, that's worked quite well, nice and firm. So let's just have a little look around for our vise. Just to rest on to lift it off the bench a bit. There we go. And let's just continue with these grooves, hopefully without jabbing my finger. I remember last week whether I was actually sawing these or not. Maybe I was. Maybe that makes more sense with a piercing saw, but any road up, as they say. So what I'm going to do, as always, not as always, but as often as possible when soft soldering, is to tin both surfaces first. Now, in this case, I'm going to tin this bit of kind of supporting material, and then brush all the solder off. Well, not all of it off, but just leave the thinnest possible layer, which will help the new solder kind of be attracted to it. A particularly neat job of that, but cool. Have a look here. So this is how the two components are going to fit together. So not only do we need to make sure that this component is really clean, but we also need to make sure that the inside of our wheel bridge is clean as well, as in exposed material. So we do have to, if you can see in there, it's quite tarnished. Solder won't stick to that. It's not going to stick to that. So we have no choice. We need to clean that off. And I'm going to do that with a bit of 4/0 steel wool. I use this Liberon steel wool. As we always say every week, make sure that you store and dispose of this responsibly because it can burn like crazy. A bit of a fire hazard. Anyway, so either put it in water, then get rid of it, or something if you don't want the place burning down. So I'm going to clean that with steel wool, a bit of pegwood. We'll use our pointy stick. Also, when you usually it's best to cut this with the scissors. It can kind of break into small fibers. So it's an idea to, if you're using it a lot, to wear a mask. It's not as bad as fiberglass, but it can be an irritant if you use it a lot. So quite fine. In fact, it's so fine. Look, it's kind of not taking that tarnish off. The tarnish, the oxide's quite hard. So what I'm going to do rather is I'm going to get this scraper, a bearing scraper, and just expose a bit of material there. Maybe I can file it as well, but I don't want to go crazy taking lots of material off. I want to keep it as close as I can to what existed, but I also don't want the thing to fall apart. So I'm going to have to be quite sort of gung-ho with it to expose fresh material. And you'll see in a minute why those grooves are so important, because they'll the solder, when it's molten, will actually get drawn. Yeah, could do. Yes, Derek, we could use a bolt through. That's a good idea, actually. While you solder it and check on the movement. Yes, definitely. Let's see how it goes. I do have a sneaking suspicion that you're right, Derek, that when we start heating it up, it's going to fall apart. So you can see there, don't feel particularly happy about doing that, getting rid of all that material from the inside. It's not a bearing surface, but as I said, I'd rather it was made a good joint rather than not. So just make sure it's deburred. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit, as we always say on how to repair pendulum clocks. Hi, Vicky, thank you for joining us. How to repair pendulum clocks. There's no right way to fix a clock. And obviously, sometimes you get to the end of a project and you think, yeah, I should have done X, Y, or Z. And sometimes you're halfway through and you have to kind of change plan or change tack, which I think is sometimes a bit sort of demoralizing. But at other times, I remind myself that it's really actually incredibly healthy to do that, because the minute we say there is or isn't a right way, there is a right way to do things, then you kind of are blocked off from new ideas. So I'd rather kind of even publicly make a mistake, or maybe saying, yeah, I wish I'd done it this way or that way, rather than saying this is definitely the way to do it, because I don't want to stop learning or thinking, more importantly, about these things. Because all the time I'm thinking whether it actually needs to be done in the first place, which of course the answer is not. However, we are here to run some kind of encouragement to people who want to get started in clock repair. And probably one of the best ways of doing that is to repair clocks, I imagine. Anyway, waffling and rambling at the same time. So let's just clean in there. Yeah, you're right, Franklin. You could use Scotch Brite. I had bought some the other day. Yeah. I think that's used a lot in things like welding and car repair and so on. So yeah, the green, yeah, definitely Scotch Brite. I'm sure there's all sorts of, you could maybe use a bit of abrasive paper, although I've managed to avoid actually using any abrasive paper on this channel, but one day I'll have to give in and do it. So yes, you could do. Yeah. Yeah, what we're after broadly is a clean or exposed material on our mating surface, and somewhere for that solder to stick to. Now, just have a look at this. Yeah, that's getting there. It's quite an uneven surface inside there already. Presumably it was, I don't know whether it's parallel or not. No, it's not, it's tapered. So presumably it was drilled or from a casting and then broached. And when you start broaching these bigger holes, it's quite tricky to keep them completely round. So the texture inside there is quite organic. But definitely, yeah, you could use Scotch Brite or coarser steel wool, actually, which I have across there, would help. Maybe I need to get off my seat and actually go and get some. Quite oily inside there as well. Okay, So the next thing is, although I'm not particularly interested in solder on the outside, I'm actually wondering whether this edge is going to give us any strength or not. I mean, the reality is maybe not. What I'm going to do is just to get, I'm going to put some gloves on. I'm going to get a fiberglass, which is the microphone. Fiberglass pencil brush. Just to clean up that edge. So the edge is a casting that's broken, so it's really rough. So I think that'll actually help us. Again, fiberglass is quite hazardous, so you might want to wear a mask. You might want to wear a mask or use extraction. But yeah. So you'll be familiar with these pencil brushes. They're incredibly sort of hard, hard and harsh. So you really want to use them on historic work with a lot of caution. I'm just going to put a new brush in because the other one I used with some paraffin, so it'll be quite oily. So yeah, not something I would use the whole time, but if you've got something like a rusty pinion, a fiberglass pencil brush can help you to remove some material, but they're very scratchy. I mean, that's the whole point of them. So it does what it says on the can, but in a kind of quite aggressive, if you like, sort of way. There's also a brass bristle version of this. Like the refill doesn't actually fit the thing. There we are. Gosh, good job there's a clockmaker around. There we go, finally. So I'm just going to use the fiberglass to clean up the end of the pipe where the casting is, because I don't want to get rid of that casting mark, because that's where it locates with the other components. I want to keep the unevenness of it, but I want to get rid of some of the tarnish. Maybe I'm probably overthinking this. That's probably because I don't really want to do it, because I've got a feeling it's going to go wrong. But anyway, there you go. Won't be the first time. So the same on here, just around the edge. Yeah, keep the fiberglass to a minimum. It's not very nice stuff to work with, and it's not very nice on old clocks either. So I'll just find a brush to brush down. Vacuuming would be better. Anyway, right, okay, let's have another look. Check that we're in the ballpark. Just get these two components lined up. There's one knobbly bit where the casting's broken away, which makes it easier to line up. Let's just have a look on the older. Right, okay. Nice and tight. So the first thing, as I said, I'm going to do is to tin this area and then brush all the solder off. So it'll leave a very, very, very kind of thin layer. So what I'll need for that is I normally have a brush that's been soaking to prevent the bristles from burning. So I'm just going to go and put this in some water. Okay, done that. So let's get some. We all know the routine now for soldering. We've got our flux. Movement out the way and out the way. Familiar territory. We've got our flux. Here we are, just regular flux. Soft soldering. We've got our solder, which I'm going to clean the tarnish off like this. And then we've got our work, which I'm also going to just give a last scrub with some steel wool. Good. And then we're going to, it's a little decision now about which gas to use. I think I'll try and use the spirit lamp, might be a bit slow. So I'm going to try and use gas, this thing, with a, you can see that in the camera. Yeah, just about, put that there, you'll be able to see it. Just about, maybe out of focus, but anyway. And yeah, so I think that's the way to do it. Camera won't focus that close, but anyway, I also need some way of holding this. Perfect. So we've got a nice chunky bit of wood, which just goes inside there to hold it. So I won't burn my fingers. Flux brush. Bit of flux on. Don't need much. Okay. Let's go for it. So point it that way. Doesn't wreck my computer. Not a lot of control with these torches, so try and heat it gently. Maybe the torch would have been, the spirit lamp would have been better. Who knows? Too late now. So you can feel the solder beginning to stick. Slowly bring it to temperature. loads of solder on there. So I'm just gonna brush that round. Not massively successful. Maybe I should have used the brush was really wet and it kept on cooling the metal down. That's okay. So let's just clean that up again. Still hot, obs. But at least we've got a bit of somewhere for the new solder to get a start. I'm just going to get that slightly coarser steel wool. There we go. So to cool down. What I'm going to do now is obviously we can't fit this onto the frame with this big chunk of metal in the way. So I'm just going to sew it off kind of roughly for now. Just find a place where it's a sort of a reasonably comfortable fit. Then I'm going to tap that in, get rid of this for a second. We'll need that in a bit. Might go back to the spirit lamp, I think. That might do the job. My invice stand. Okay. Just have a little bit more flux on there when we put the two components together, because this is going to be the sort of last time we see it apart, hopefully. And then the same thing for our pipe. So just in a slightly paranoid way, go back to this coarser steel wool. Talk about belt and braces, blimey, about 10 times over. But anyway, to keep reminding myself that I'm not actually in a rush to do this project. It's meant to be to share it with people, so good. Not massively convinced about that being super clean inside there. It's really difficult to see actually, but anyway. There you go. Okay, a bit more flux in there. Oh, I've lost you for a minute. And let's just line that up.
see Derek's comment about using a bolt and not to hold it together while it's over it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did mention that, yeah. And also from Franklin about the Scotch Brite.
Yeah.
You can see it's reasonably tight. Not that. The hour bridge is really soft, incredibly soft, which is probably not a surprise. It's I don't know what's happened to my camera. Has it frozen? It looks like it has. Maybe not. Just check. Oh, there we are. For some reason, oh, blimey. All this technology. The hour bridge is really soft. It's incredible. So we've got to check that that's still flat. Doesn't look bad, but it's just a casting. And so I guess, interesting that when we talked a lot about bushing recently, bushing and depthing. And of course, on clocks where you've got a cast back cock like this, in fact, from new, the thing is really soft because it's a bit of cast brass. So that bush is probably one of the ones that wears more than the others. So we're getting there, not quite made up the joint yet. I just need a better way of supporting it under here because it's bending the back cock. So think how that's going to work. All right, gosh, remember our good old boxwood split stake? Look at that, perfect. Made for the job, so happy with that. That just enables me to tap this down without the bridge bending up. So now I might have to move across to vice number 2 because I think this vice is going to be too small. Let's have a look. Oh, we might just get away with it. No, we're okay. We're good. Well, I'm just being careful because all this metal is really soft. So I totally don't want to bend it. Both things already had a tough enough life. Trying to get the two bits to actually mate up together. Yeah. I think my challenge here is the fact that when the clock was dropped or whatever happened to it, the pipe, of course, is compressed on one side. So it's squidged in a bit first, probably stretched on the other as well before it broke. So it's not a brittle material. So I'm trying to get them to sort of sit together, but of course they don't want to because it's gotten squidged down here. So it's not lining up perfectly, but it's pretty close. So I mean, that's not moving and not that I can really tell yet, but that feels pretty straight and it looks pretty straight. So let's sew it off. and then try it on the clock, and then let's make a hand. Well, when I say make a hand, you know what I mean, don't you? Team Open Clock Club is shaking its head, their head, saying, no, I don't know what you mean, Matthew. You know what I mean, though. That's all that matters. Bit of wire bent round.
Eric said it doesn't look square to the bridge.
It's not bad. Oh, again, for some reason the Zoom thing keeps coming to the front, so I it's kind of leaning over a bit that way. Yeah, it's not perfect, but that's the point of the exercise, that we're going to get it on the clock, because remember, with this clock, we've got a false plate and we've got a dial. So who knows what our alignment is going to be when we actually get the thing fitted on. So I'm going to cut this off pretty close, which will save us finishing later, but I don't want to cut inside the bridge. Now, just before I actually cut it off, am I doing the right thing here? No, I might leave more material on. It's always easier to cut more off later, isn't it? Yes. And then at least I can run the solder up against the edge. Good idea, Reid. Thank you. This is a really kind of sticky tube brass, drawn brass, which does the job, but it's a bit of a pig to cut. Again, that warning about flux, of course, there is a bit of flux on here. So if you're in your workshop, you would go away and wash everything in hot soapy water first. Okay, so we've cut it off. There we are. Like that. Quite chunky in here. Remember, we're going to open this out later to get the cannon pipe of the cannon wheel through. So there we are. Yeah, it's looking all right. I mean, let's not celebrate quite yet. So this hasn't got any steady pins on it. So how on earth do we know which way around it goes? Sometimes they're dot marked. Yeah, this one's got a whopping great big dot mark on it here. Can you see that? Nice. And the plate has also got one. So here, see that?
Hold it steady.
Hold it steady. Hold it steady. That's Team Open Clock Club's naval history runs in the blood. So there you go. So here are the dot marks. Look, there's one, there's one. How do you differentiate between dot marks that are made by repairers and dot marks that are made by the manufacturer? Almost without exception, never say never, of course. Dot marks made by manufacturers are deburred. Dot marks made by repairers and center punch marks aren't typically. You can, they're wildly different things. Okay, so I had a pair of screws. Don't know whether these are the right screws or not, but with screws on a clock like this, they don't stick through on the inside much. So if you've got a clock, as inevitably all these clocks have been taken to bits 1,000 times, and you want to know which screws go where, just see how far through they stick on the inside of the plate. If they stick through a long way, typically they'll have a point on them. The center about which the thing's being turned will be left on by the maker. They won't leave a whole lot of thread. You like never see that. Again, never say never, but it's quite rare. Whereas if the screws are like this one here, that's really convincing. If you can see, it's pretty much just sticking through 1/4 of a millimeter or something. This one's a little bit short, so maybe that's a back cock screw. Right, good, getting there. Do we want the center wheel in? I don't think we do we? Because we want to stick something in the middle to oik it across a bit, sort of like a crowbar type arrangement. So here's our false plate that we wrapped up all beautifully, neatly all those months ago when we photographed it with our photographic skills. Did I say that I'd probably slightly misused my time this morning putting photographic skills on my website? But anyway, they're there now. I think I've told you the story 10 times, but when we did the icon lectures on Monday, was it Monday? Yeah. One of the students, she's now in practice, was using one of the skills that I'd done when I was teaching, and they'd found all the way to America. So I was so excited by this that I thought I'm going to put them out there and make them available to everybody. So there's our false plate. You'll remember we're loving the paint splatters. Really nice. We washed this in paraffin and then heated it to hand hot and then treated it with Renaissance wax, microcrystalline wax. I'm just going to put a couple of pins in the plates. Yeah, just to tack it together. So we don't need all four, 2 will do. Yeah, if it's not square, all I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit of wood down that hole and then bludgeon it across. There we go. Pins then, a couple more pins in our false plate. Oh, actually, what I could do, maybe. I wondered whether I could actually solder it when it was on the. No, I can't is the answer. A couple more pins in the false plate. It's got 3 dial false plate feet, 4 pillars, 3 false plate feet, and 4 dial feet. So pretty standard kind of early 19th century arrangement here. Nothing at all fancy. That's good. All nice and square, or as square as these things are ever going to be. I mean, it's a miracle they ever ran in the first place. So, yeah. Now I can see. Now, well, I mean, there's no point in me guessing. So let's get our dial. I'm going to put my gloves on now because I've got fluxy fingers, which is not great. It's certainly not great for the. I've got notifications too. Quite enough room in the reader, so just make a bit of room. Right. Okay, let's check that this is. I've forgotten that. Our dial has got this is a slight drawback of a project that runs over many months and not actually having, I do have a written down plan somewhere, but not actually having like a complete written down plan, because you can see we've got 1 dial foot missing, but that's actually, it's the back plate that's rocking on the bench. So I think we're okay. So let's make our hand now. I know. If the whole thing ever runs, it'll be an actual miracle. All right, that's kind of interesting too. This is a very close fit on the pipe that's underneath it, which is a good thing, but it's actually pushing it onto that bit of reinforcing material underneath. It's actually opened it up or stretched it enough to make this slightly tight, which doesn't bother us at this stage, but it does mean we might have to remove yet more material when we get going. It's a little bit of a shame. Right, a hand. Let's make ourselves a hand then. Let's find a bit of wire. No, dog has no hands. Just a bit of wire. Likening myself to Da Vinci, looking for the hand inside the wire drawer. I know it says somewhere. Okay, there you go. You might not recognize it, but there it is. You know, I'm convinced. I look convinced. This is it. Perfect. Actually, I would prefer the wire to be a bit thicker, but anyway, usual story. We will work with what we've got. There's that good joke there, isn't it? Like my dog's got no nose, how does he smell? Awful. My clock's got no hands. Something. Yeah, maybe not. Right, okay. So let's just make us a hand. Nice pliers, Wilkinson's. Look at that, straight out the box. Doesn't Material House eat your heart out? Hands for every make of clock while you wait. How long do we want our hand? That long, I think. There we go. There's our hand. 3 o'clock. Midday. Clock striking. Good. Right. Enough stupidity. Matthew's trying to come up with a joke. Yeah, it failed on the joke. My dog's got no nose joke. Anyway, how does it smell? I'm sure that joke went out of fashion 40 years ago, even if it was ever in fashion. It's all in the delivery. That is absolutely true. My granddad, he was a great one at telling jokes. He could really tell a good joke. He was a hunting, shooting, fishing type man. One of them, the paternal side, completely untrustworthy type, but he could tell a good joke. So there you go. Good lad. But regrettably, I haven't inherited that skill. Right. Okay, there's our hand. So let's just pop him off. Or it off. Pop our dial back on with 3 dial feet. I think we'll get a transit blanket now. And turn the whole lot over. You're in the museum kind of world or the removals world, you will come across these things called transit blankets, and they are absolutely like the most useful thing ever for moving things around without them getting broken. Really good. Anyway. Should be on everybody's list. There we go. Nice and cozy. Don't really need that date ring on there because it's bent anyway, but pop that on there and let's get some pins into our false plate. Might need bigger pins. So on some of these false plate holes, you need a bigger pin. They seem to be pretty random, thrown together rather rapidly, but you might need a chunkier pin. I think they actually call them false plate pins. It's all happening out there, as you can hear. It's all go, excitement. Thursday night's a new Friday night. They've obviously all heard about our live stream, rushing home to sit in front of YouTube. I was talking to my son today, who was 16, and slightly bizarre conversation because I said, oh, I need to go now because I've got my live stream. And you would think that was kind of quite an unusual thing to say to a 16-year-old, but he looked completely nonplussed. Okay, so this is maybe where we needed a bit more planning. This is not fitting together.
It says Birmingham on the plate.
Yeah. Only that's where the clock was made. These clocks were made in manufactories. Zoom out a little bit. So they weren't kind of handmade in the way that we kind of fantasize about with clockmakers. They're made in manufactories, have been for a long time, and the movements were made separate from the dials. But again, probably Birmingham made dial as well, and they came together. And it's that false plate, which I think is relating to the dial maker, that joined the two together. That's the point of a false plate like this. And on an older clock, the movement and the dial just go together. Oh, I see why that's not fitting together. So should have actually planned this a little bit better. Yeah, so if you're interested in white dials, you know, painted dials and that kind of point in history, then Brian Looms has written, I think, quite extensively about that trade. Ian very kind, was it Ian who looked it up before?
Yeah.
He very kindly looked up this maker, and I can't remember what it was now. Wilkes and Baker. Wilkes and Baker, you can just see that in there, that cast into the iron false plate. And Wilkes and Baker, I think, were only in business for a relatively short time. I'm gonna sneeze. Pardon me. Dusty old clocks. So we could date it within about 5 years, was it? Yeah, something like that, early 19th century. So quite useful information. Anyway, Brian Looms, I'm, as you know, no historian. So Brian Looms is your man when it comes to stuff like this. So the old taper pin was in the hole, which is why I couldn't get the false plate to sit down. It would help. Rapidly running out of taper pins, used many. Yeah, I mean, these clocks, it's crazy because they're so inexpensive. Round here, we've got a few auction houses, and every month or whatever it is, there are early 19th century long case clocks for sale. And as I know it's all relative, but they fetch a fraction of what they fetched 10, 15 years ago. And in fact, this one was free. This one was actually given away. Now that's a bit loose there. So when I finish it later on, although I don't think they had from original, I'm going to put a bit of a, make a washer up out of brass and put that in there just to prevent it from rattling. But there we are. Even though we've only got 3 dial feet, that's pretty good now. Quite happy with that. Let's just ditch our transit blanket. And now, of course, what I've done is I've incredibly casually threw the new hand to one side. I've found it. There we go. Nothing wrong with that. So here we are, the moment of truth. I need to get my fingers in there to watch it rotate. So it's quite tight on that pipe now. I'll deal with that later. It'd be better if it wasn't quite so tight, so I could rotate it easier. And of course, if these two components stick together, what they're going to do is it's going to turn the one underneath, I imagine. I'm pretty sure that's probably what's happening. Yeah, it is. Right, okay. A little bit of disassembly. Probably easier to take the movement of the false plate. Right. I'm just going to put some oil on there. Bit of Renaissance wax would do it. It hasn't actually turned around, so that's okay. But I'm just going to put a smear of oil on there just to make it easier to rotate. I don't want it to go near anywhere where we're going to be soldering, so that's going to be fun, isn't it? Right. 17th time lucky. Caps on. Come on, Brian. If only we had a lathe, we could have put that on the false on the face plate and straightened it out. Not to worry. Sure, this is doing me the power of good. Oh, it's moral fortitude. Again. And back on, but I don't want to shove this down. Of course, we've got some quite sort of friable paint surfaces which we want to look at later, but be careful with that. All right. Check it's not going to move, which surprisingly looks a little bit unstable, but it's all right, I think. Have to remain positive. Try to find my 6-inch ruler. I'm using it during the week, so just gently measure up. And the tip of the hand there is about so the top of the metal is 1/4 of an inch from the dial. So let's just rotate it 90 degrees. Thereabouts. Measure it here. A little bit lower there. It's about 5 millimeters there. So I'm mixing up my units. So it's gone from 6 and a bit to about 5 millimeters. So it's lower here. I'll stick in metric. So it's again up to about 1/4 of an inch there. So that's interesting because that point and the one diametrically opposed are about the same height. So that 1 millimeter difference is maybe just to do with the flatness of the dial, because you would expect it to be high at one side and low at the other. Yeah, it's amazingly flat. It's within about 1 millimeter. So maybe fractionally low around here. I'll just put it back across there and just check that. But the dial isn't exactly flat, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Yeah, you can see it's definitely lower there. So let's just get our bit of pegwood that we're using. And let's just move it up a little bit. There we are. So just a bit of movement there. It actually gave me quite a bit of encouragement that the hour wheel bridge, not that I want to start bending it, but it's that very soft cast material. So if the worst comes to the worst, if we're talking about 1 millimeter of error, that isn't going to bother me because there's so much parallax on these dials. You could drive a London bus between the hands. It's not exactly a mudge and done. But of course, if it gets to be a lot, then we've got some play in that hour wheel bridge, which I've already sort of abused a little bit. So let's put our dial away safely. I'm not quite sure whether that exercise, if we can call it an exercise, was worth it, but it's kind of a nice idea to check that tracking. And if you get a clock, particularly where the hands and the dial and the movement are associated, then it's quite a useful exercise to go through. And again, what it reminded me, of course, is that we've got that other job to do of making a dial foot. So there we are. So I'll just try and gently work this off without disturbing it, because that's the whole point of it. And same here. Let's find our screwdriver on the mountain of tools. Within about 1 millimeter. So here's our challenge, of course, that the thing doesn't move when we solder it. So I'm still not entirely sure about using the blowtorch. I think I will use a blowtorch just because I'm going to put it like that. and run the solder in. So a little bit more flux on. I'll just move the movement out of here without losing it. It'll give, if I say, where's the clock movement gone, it'll give us opportunity to shout it's behind you so we can get warmed up for the Christmas canto. So here we go, exciting. So Derek may well be right and the whole thing might flop over and go, in which case, and I'll think about fixing it together as you suggested with that nut and bolt or an engineer's tool clamp or something like that. But actually, ideally, again, you could make something that was completely flat with a spigot that went through the middle, but don't have those facilities, so we will work with what we've got. Another moment of truth. Yeah, this is all about the truth, whatever that slippery animal is. So I'm being slightly over generous with the flux. Again, I'm moderately paranoid about the whole thing.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
I think Derek's point is that because you've got 3 components, they're going to expand slightly at different rates. So they're all brass. Ideally, what we want is them to warm up together. So because if the outer ones warm up quickly, they'll move because they'll become loose. So we want to warm it gently. So I'm going to put this heat deflecting device there. Get my solder, check that it's clean. But it's not the end of the world because we can, brush off the solder if necessary and start again. But I would prefer if it was just straight. I don't think it's moved in taking it off. So reasonably happy there. And again, I'm hoping that the solder runs round. So let's get some flux on there. Bit of gas. I'm going to heat it gently. Probably the torch is really not controllable. But anyway, I complain about it every week and don't do anything about it, so whatever. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes and just allow it to heat up. See the flux melting. So the bricks refractory blocks will reflect a bit of heat back as well. And I'm hoping that those V-shaped channels draw the solder down into the joint. Let's hope they do. Not hot enough yet. Okay, let's give that a minute or two to cool down. So the solder ran round really nicely, quite a lot of solder on there, but I will clean most of that off. So the question, of course, is one, whether it's actually stayed straight or not. But we'll see in a bit. We'll pop it back on and have a little look. Then I'll cut off the excess and then think about a way of trimming that. I've got a feeling I might be able to get it in the watchmaker's lathe, I think, just about by putting a bit of wood in a 1/4 inch collet and then popping it on the wood, and we can turn it, at least rather than just having a filed finish, we can turn the edge of it up way. So once it's cooled a bit, I'm going to go have a little break for a couple of minutes while I wash off most of the flux. In fact, while it's cooling down, I'll have a look for bottle brush. Perfect tool for the job. It always takes surprisingly long time for the solder to solidify when you've soldered something big like this. So I don't want to be impatient and move it and the solder still be liquid, as we say nowadays. Don't want the solder to be liquid. So patience. All right, that's enough patience for one day. I'm going to go and oh, I can see solder on the inside, so that's promising. Something's gone through the hole. And so I'll get our brush. I'm going to disappear for 2 minutes. I'll just go on mute. Right, we're back. And let's have a look how we got on. So the question is, has the solder run through? And despite the odds and it being slightly hesitant, ta-da, there it has. So there was no solder on the inside at all, but you can see there's a lovely little fillet of solder the whole way around. So brilliant, super happy with that. That is going to be really strong. So our next challenge is to get this badger off here. Of course, now I've done it, I needn't have left it that long, but that's okay. I'm just going to chop it off with the piercing saw, and I'm going to try. I'm not sure I'll be able to put it in the lathe because normally you would turn a bit of wood in the lathe and shove this on the taper, but of course it's tapered in the wrong direction, so that might not help me. You could just file it, but I don't want to file on the inside of the bridge. So really happy with that. In fact, I'm going to leave it that way up as a celebration of so-called man against so-called machine, neither of which statements are actually true. But there you go. Good result. But I've also learned as well that we've got a dial foot to make for the dial. But that's all right. Bit of brass, and we'll have to file it. Piercing salt. Right. No opportunity to languish in the joy of the success there. I had to press on. Right. Okay. I held on to the bit of metal before, didn't I? So this is plain jaws-ish in this vise. I was walking past, as you do, a building site the other day. It's not a joke. If you're going past building sites or anybody who's having new doors fitted, when you get a door, it's got some really good, about inch by inch angle cardboard, like really hard compressed cardboard on the doors that gets thrown in skips. And it's really, really useful as vice jaws. I was sort of, my eyes lit up, but regrettably, there wasn't any of the right, so-called right stuff. So this is where you could make an end cutter, a nice little distraction, actually. So I'm pulling up on the saw blade because I don't want to saw down onto our wheel bridge. Check I'm actually doing what I'm saying.
How about putting it on a wood taper and then turning it around in a main?
Yeah, that's what I would do, but the tapers the wrong way, unfortunately. You'd normally file a bit of wood to a brooch taper, stick a bit of wood in the collet, file it to a taper, stick the component on. Really great way of turning, but the taper inside here is going the wrong way, so that the wood would go from this side, and this is where I want to get my graver. But maybe what I can do is actually put the wood in from this side and then hold it in the collet. We'll have a little play about with that. But work holding, is always sort of a major challenge and good fun. The piercing saw blade's gone blunt, but I'm rather in a slightly Yorkshire bloody-minded way going to try and get through it with this one. Just check them up. Sewing there, that's fine. Yeah, I think we're going to be able to hold this in the lathe. Don't quite know how. Because you've got a lathe with bigger collets, you can just stick the whole thing in a collet. And, anyway, I don't. Or make a bit of wood in the, put a bit of wood in the 3-jaw chuck or 4-jaw chuck, bore a hole in the middle and screw these two to the face plate or the bit of wood. And then you can turn and do what you want. But I can't just leave this sticking out, A, because it would look a bit scruffy, which I don't particularly care about, but B, because the front of the cannon wheel often runs very, very close to the back of the hour wheel bridge. And if it rubs, then it won't, our clock will stop. Right. There we go. So sorry, the camera's been a bit hot. I didn't realize. So again, we can put a bit of, I had some on my bench actually from my watch project. You could put a bit of Melanex on there, or you could even put a bit of tape on there just to give yourself a little bit of protection like that for when you file. I'm just going to file off the top of the sewing. It's not bad actually. Slightly crazy file, but anyway. Annoying file with a loose file handle, like not fitted by me, I hasten to add with mine. So we want to talk about these end cutters that you get in a bushing tool. It's a lot easier to file it than turn it. Well, in this case, because we're turning with a graver. So I'm getting off as much as I can, but without touching the back of the bridge. But if you do it really carefully, then you get a fine file. This is a number 4 cut file. You can actually file right down and let the file skid on the top of the material, and it won't touch the material underneath. We're about there. So it's what, sticking out about half a mil, quarter of a mil, something like that. But I want to take it down a bit more because it's a nice little challenge. And before anybody barks at me, no marking to the edge of the bridge, because I say these jaws are totally benign. Well, not totally benign, but pretty benign. So really happy with that. I think what we might do next, oh no, I was going to talk about the bushing tool, wasn't I? Not for bushing, but for using the cutters. So if you buy a bushing tool, comes with a whole range of interesting and useful equipment, and which you can use when you're bushing, but actually it's useful for all sorts of things, including these. And so this is what I wanted to talk about. This is like an end mill. It's not an end mill. It's what's the name for it? It's in our publication. What's the name for it? It's not an end mill. It's can't remember, like a rose cutter. I've forgotten the name for it, sorry. But the thing is here, it's got a center look that normally is a good fit inside the hole. So if I tried to use this to cut away material there, it's just going to wobble about like this. I'd say maybe I can use it, but you can make these, if you think about it, all this is it's a cylinder of steel, drill the middle, get a file, and file these 3 or 4 bits of relief. I've made loads of these. It's a bit of a faff, but if you want to an end cutter that's a specific diameter with a specific center, and of course you could just make a bigger center for this as well to locate it. I wonder whether we can actually use this. I'll just check it's big enough first. Yeah, it would be. Let's have a little look at that. Save me mounting it in the layers on it. So remember, speaking of bushing, no bushing without a so-called objective depthing exercise. I know you know that.
Jim says counterball.
Counterball. Thank you, Jim. Was that?
Jim, yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Counterball. You can buy them industrial ones, but they're actually dead easy to make out of a bit of silver steel. Oh. Damn. Might be in business here. Let's just have a look. Counterball. Thank you. There we are. So not ideal because the center in this counterball would be the same diameter or nearly the same diameter as that hole there, then it won't tend to move sideways. But what we can do to center it is just put a bit of tape on here.
Derek says, why not put a brass bush on the center of the counterball?
Good idea, Derek. Could do that as well. Yeah, absolutely. Many ways to fix a clock. None of them right and none of them wrong. But yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've got my bushes somewhere. I could just broach out a bush. Really good idea. What I've done there, look, just wrap some tape around, which is going to actually make it surprisingly good fit in there. So I'm going to use the old... the good thing about doing it this way, there's a lot of control. It's not as nice as doing it with the graver, because with the graver, you can angle it quite easily. You can see the material being cut away there. So I'm just going to go down till it just starts to nearly touch. It's cutting the solder away now, so I know I'm getting there.
Ian's a virgin, call them pivot stroke rose cutter.
All right, yeah. I think traditionally they would have been called a rose cutter when they came in those really nice sets in sort of a burgundy box with a velvet lining. I think Ian's probably got 6 of those sets. He's cornered the world market on rose cutters. I used to have one when I was younger, but I don't know where it went. Probably thought, didn't know what it was, so I chucked it away. Not chucked it away, but sold it. As you can see, this is nice and controlled. Right, we're there. Just starting to touch on the inside of the bridge, so we'll call that a day. And I'm going to use the kind of, I don't know what you call it, chamfering, beveling tool thing. Many tool avalanches. This one, just to chamfer the inside of the thing that we've made. Remember, we've this is miles too tight. Only 7 sets. Oh gosh, that's quite restrained, Ian. National Collection. Good, quite happy with that then. So surprisingly little solder. We can get rid of that if we want. Let's get this tape off if I can. Maybe leave it on. Great, really, really happy here. I think I'm gonna have to, unfortunately, very fractionally open out the inside of the hour pipe because it's pushing this bit, the actual pipe, onto our bush thing inside our supporters. Opened it up a little bit with it being cast brass. That's a little bit of a shame. Didn't really want to do that. And yeah, I've got a gritty cobs in the wheel teeth. Well, the one thing we need to do before we finish that is check that the cannon pipe goes through the hole, which it doesn't. So broachy time. Although I think again, maybe now I've got the old bushing tool out. Remember, no bushing without an objective depthing exercise, if I didn't already say that 10 times. I can't remember who it was asking me about the arms on the bushing tool. Somebody on, I think it was it Jonas, asking me about the arms, the bushing tool. Why don't I use the arms? Dear, yeah. On the Facebook group it was. As we know, it's like any tool, the first thing you do when you buy it is chuck half of it away, take it apart, throw half the parts away, then you've actually got something that can maybe actually work. Right, the problem with this is that it's not high enough. I think I might broach it. Would be useful to know. It's actually, I'd forgotten that the bit of material we're putting there is quite chunky, so it's quite a lot of material to remove. But
you seem to have 2 bushing tools.
2 bushing tools. Only 2 bushing tools. No, the other one, the one I showed on Facebook is the one from the college. Mine doesn't have that lovely plywood base on it that I made. I'm just constantly frustrated by the fact that it wobbles about when using it, but never actually get around to fitting it onto a bit of wood. Doesn't actually have anywhere, does it, this one, to clamp it, which is a bit of a shame. I think I fantasized once about using my milling machine to mill a flat on there. And anyway, so yeah, no, the other one, I like this. I've had this. This was one of the first tools I ever got. And yeah, I've got it before I started with the short courses at the British Horological Institute. So I've got it probably when I was 18, which was a long time ago. Yeah, that D cutter's really struggling on this material. It's incredibly sticky. So I'm going to try a brooch. I suppose I could drill it actually as well, but that would be a bit wild. Yeah, that bushing tool's really useful with those things. I don't particularly often use it for bushing, but I do use it a lot for reaming. Ah, that's better. Gosh, much nicer using a brooch. Oh, for a larger lathe to bar out the hole. Yes, Ian, tell me about it. One day, it's coming. I can smell it. I can smell the nutto. Except I won't be using nutto on my lathe. Really sticky brass to broach, actually, as well as. I'm only broaching the new bush, of course, the new sort of bit of reinforcing material. Just to get clearance so we can get our ink through. Over time now, so if something's calling, which I'm sure it probably is, it's more interesting than this, and I'll just keep going until I can get the cannon pipe through, then I can call it a day. Right. Now I don't want to file inside there. So actually, again, this would be a good place where you could put a bush inside there temporarily to use as a filing guide, because I don't want to. I remember, I can't remember his name now. I think it's Graham on the Facebook group was talking about opening holes up with a round file and using it like this. So turning the file, if you turn the file that way, it just winds into the hole and it sticks, of course, because it's got a thread on it effectively. But if you turn it the opposite way, then you can actually use it to open up the hole. Yeah. So anyway, very pleased with the soldering after all that mucking about with the aligning it and trying the hour wheel on and all that stuff. But it's reminding me, which I'd forgotten or not even realized in the first place, that we need to make a dial foot. And but otherwise, I think we're getting there. We've still got that gathering pallet thing to repair, but I'm totally in the mood just to get that done quickly now, and then we'll put it together and make that dial foot. And very, very pleased with my new hand. You can always tell these handmade hands because they're kind of like not finished on the back, sort of rather naive, not slightly naive design, but you know, working with nature. Yeah. Yep, I just had that shoveling collet. I put it in the collet and bore it out. Nice and concentrate. Take about 3 minutes. So, shall we call it a day? Call it a day. Stick to the purgatory of filing. Something very relaxing about I sound believable. Something very relaxing about clock making is my filing. See, we're running loads over time. Not that there is a time for the live stream, of course. So those of you that have to disappear and do more interesting, stroke better things, then thank you for joining us. I'm going to continue with this in a slightly bloody-minded way until the cannon pipe fits through. Then I won't have it to come back to next week. Maybe I should just drill it. So near yet so far. Watering, yeah, definitely. Mustn't forget the watering. I forgot the hanging basket for 2 days and it's shriveled up. Yeah, it's amazing. It just both days really happy, lucky at the moment. 2 days, it's been sort of very miserable in the morning, and then it's been absolutely glorious and really, really warm. But of course, one person's really nice and warm is another person's problem, isn't it? I see on the America again there, I've got a lot of fires, and in Germany, Europe, there are floods. So, blimey. Yeah. And when I first did this, I thought there was absolutely loads of space there, but obviously not. So pleased with the soldering. I would just drill it, but I'd hate, because it's quite thin, is the reinforcement. I would hate it to grab and then break it. And that'd be quite depressing. So for sake of a bit more filing, I might as well just keep filing it. I need to practice. Maybe I need to look for a sharper file. This one's quite good. Just sticky material. Definitely filing down because the file's now sticking through far enough to jab into my hand. Right. Nearly there. Another 15 minutes later. Yeah, the art of Zen. Quite. And joking apart, I mean, as we said when we wrote our first book, that there is a massive well-being element to fixing clocks or fixing anything, in fact, and that sort of sense of satisfaction. And importantly, I think with the Facebook group, the community that it's engendered, which hopefully is something that people look forward to participating in and feel part of something. So yeah, there's all sorts of kind of benefits, I'm sure. Look for a different file just to try and nearly there. But this is only new material that we're removing, just so we can get a tempting to file down the cannon pipe, isn't it? Joking. It is tempting, but I would hand wouldn't sit on properly. I've already stabbed it about 3 times. It's doing me good. Character strengthening, or as they call it. Character building. Well, Derek's the epitome of character building with his opinion, not giving up, leading by example. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. idea of putting a bush in the end actually would have been really useful, because it would have meant you could file down onto it without worrying about loss of material. Anyway, right, for change of scene, go back to the old bushing tool reamer. I don't think that's going to speed things up necessarily, but it'll make me feel a bit better.
Hopefully correct the opinions.
All right, brilliant. I read that it was you thought that the pinion was drilled eccentrically, so that would explain it, or would help explain it anyway, at least. So that's really good news. I will finish at 7 o'clock if we haven't done the thing by then, because it's turning into a form of torture. How awkward can it be? Done with that reamer, which is now stuck. Still doesn't fit through. Lost track of time. It's 8. Oh, it's 8. Is it 8 already? Gosh, doesn't time fly when you're enjoying yourself? 8? Gosh. That was I. 7. Oh. What's an hour between friends? The best time of evening to do the watering, after 8. That's why they made the mints. Best time of day. Six minutes of torture to go. Like those clickbaity YouTube videos. When I come to put this online, I'll say you must watch it to the end. Keep watching to the end. I know what's going to happen now. The thing's going to fall off and then start again. 4 minutes. Can we do it in 4 minutes? With that being a tapered ream, I just need to check it's not. No, I think we've got loads of material left. These days, before it falls off. So next week then, we will be back on the gathering palette, I guess. I'm just going to get a little bit organized and solder it and get it done. And then a bit of a cleaning the week after. And then make that dial foot. So it the whole project lives to fight another day. Not quite sure what the moral of today's lesson has been, but just keep going, I suppose. Well, I'm really surprised that that's even longer than the bit of material that we've actually fitted into it, but it does appear to be. Oh, strangely, when I knocked my mouse there, the computers put up the time in 3 different countries. So Tokyo, it's 4 o'clock. Sydney, it's 5 o'clock. Paris, it's 9 o'clock. Cupertino, it's just coming up to midnight or midday. Oh, midday, -8 hours.
It's like Frankie's watching.
Oh, is he? Mm-hmm. I did. I mentioned Frankie. Hi, Frankie. Is he not tight? Is he not talking?
Hello.
Oh, has he just turned up? All right. Okay. Maybe you thought it started at 8 and not 6. Oh, maybe he's been asleep because he's working long hours. So, oh, good to see you anyway, Frankie. You've not missed a thing. You've just missed like at least half an hour of just filing and trying to open up this hole to get this cannon pipe thing through. But we did do some soldering, which was successful, really good, and made a hand for our clock. So all good. That's all Frankie's saying. Hello. Don't blame him. Embarrassing. He fell asleep. Oh, no wonder. Right, well, it looks like we're not going to get this finished today, unfortunately, because it's now 8 o'clock, not 7 as I thought. So I don't think this is going to happen, but I'm going to keep at it, and really can't be far off now. He said, well, I said that half an hour ago, so. Annoying. No, still will go through. Anyway, thank you for watching. It's been a bit of a saga tonight, but we had success with the soldering. That was a major repair on the route to getting this clock back on the road again. So we're happy with that. You saw we put solder on the back. It's just run through those grooves that I filed around the front there between the 2 components, made a nice fillet, and you can see all the kind of holding we've been doing. So it's nice and strong. Just need to broach out that bush, the reinforcing piece on the inside, and I'll keep at that now until it's done. So as always, we look forward to seeing you on the Facebook group during the week. And on Saturday, Open Clock Club, we've got the second part of our rope or line-driven fusee clock anatomy to look at, and also waiting in the wings won't be this week, but we've got a change of ribbon fusee as well now to look forward to. So thanks to everybody. Super special thank you to Team Open Clock Club here, who's been sat in the corner typing away and keeping everybody entertained. So thanks for your support. And if we don't see you on Facebook, we'll see you next Thursday at the same time, or on Saturday at 6 o'clock for our Open Clock Club. Thanks very much, and bye for now. Oh, bye, Frankie. Hey, have they gone now? What? Hey. Come, it's worked. There, look. Ta-da! Finally. Good.